Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our program today. Our theme is reducing conflict in selling and getting alignment between buyer and seller. So where's the conflict? Why is there conflict? Selling could mean three different things. Customer service. That means customer calls us up, says, "Can I buy something?" or inquires. And that's not what we mean here when we're exploring conflict. It could mean account management. We call on key accounts and we ask them about their needs, but we already have an existing relationship. What we're really focused on here is business development. Business development. That's where we reach out and try to open up new accounts, but it also could mean we substantially try to change the relationship with an existing account, which could fall under account management. So here I'm thinking of we're trying to upsell, cross-sell, we're trying to get into a new division, or we're trying to change our market share. We have 50% of the business and we share it and we want to get to 60% of the business. So business and development usually involves conflict. We want to go forward, and on some level the buyer is saying no. Why is this? Well, we're asking the buyer to change or the organization to change. And change usually involves grieving or loss. To develop this idea, I draw on a model that comes from a book called On Death and Dying, about the grieving cycle. So when we first come to a buyer and ask them to change, whether it's to bring us in as a new vendor or to materially change an existing relationship, they're satisfied. And so, we give them some information and they say, I don't need this, I'm good. And then if we give them a lot of evidence, we might encourage and encounter resistance and the closed mind. Our job, because they don't know what they don't know and we have to teach them, our job is to bring them around the curve to exploration and learning mindset. From this, we could get to hope and commitment to change. So the real action takes place here in going from closed mindset to exploration and learning mindset. When the prospect resists change, there are at least three major objections we run into. I'm good, which means I'm quite happy the way I am right now. Your price is too high, and I see you as too risky. Now, this latter one, I see you as too risky. In my experience, I've worked with over 150 organizations, tends to be the biggest challenge for which we're not prepared. Now, what you might want to do is a little power of the wisdom exercise. Brainstorming within your organization, what are your biggest objections? And draw on the power of the room. How do we resolve these objections? I'm going to give you some ideas right now today, but I think you'll find that this is a great exercise to do in your own organization. Now, one of the best ways to reduce conflict is with something that's called uncontested space. There's a book, we'll look at the book in a moment, called Blue Ocean Marketing that makes this distinction between oceans of red ink, which means where it's like a cutthroat competitive scenario, and it's if we even get the business, it's hard, to make a buck, versus blue ocean. Blue ocean, uncontested space, smooth waters. So here's a challenge for us, everybody, me included. In your first conversation with a prospect, they're going to put you in one of these two categories, the red ink or the blue ocean. What do you do in the first 15 minutes to get into or to set up the blue ocean of uncontested space? In business-to-business selling, there's typically a 3 to 12 or even 24-month selling cycle. That first meeting or phone call or Zoom meeting is so important, because if we don't nail an urgency in that first meeting, then the buyer tends to look at us as a pricing exercise. So something to check in with thought processes: what are we doing in the first 15 minutes of the first conversation? Now, what we want to do is bring the prospect to a better place. The only way we could justify doing business is if the prospect is on a false summit looking down, and our job is to get them to look up and notice there's a higher summit of well-being. That's our quest. That's our justification. And ideally, it's a blue ocean, which means it's uncontested space and there's a barrier to entry. So there's strategy we want to build into this. So the essence of persuasion, again, is the prospect's looking down and we want to bring them up. We want to bring them up to a higher level of well-being. And this is a major way to eliminate conflict if we could show this to a prospect. So far, we've dealt with the I'm good objection. The answer to the I'm good objection is I'm taking you to a better place. We're also now going to look at your price is too high. So let's say our price is higher than the other guy or gal's price. What do we do? Let's look at two quick economic justification worksheets. Do you have worksheets like this? So here's an example. It's an actual example from a client, but I've not shown you who the client is. We sell a product for 67.5 cents, and the competition is at 60 cents. It's a package. Product goes into this plastic package. So they use $900,000 a year, which means the client is going to pay us $67,000 more than for the incumbent product. Why should they spend that extra money? Well, here's an economic justification. Let's say they sell the product for $9. They have a 50% margin. So the profit per unit is $4.50. The break-even sales to justify the investment is 15,000 more units. They have to sell another 15,000 units, or 2% more product. That'll justify paying us a higher price. In other words, better product, close more customers, it pays for the higher price. Let's look at another case. Yes, we're higher priced, but we have more reliable shipment. So it's the same product, same basic analysis. They're going to be spending another $67,000 a year with us. How can we justify it? Again, profit per unit, $4.50. So if they produce 3,600 units a day, 900,000 a year, if I did my math right, then the profit from an extra day of production is $16,200. So if we could establish that because the competitor does not ship on time, or the competitor does not ship conforming products, they lose 5 days of production a year, that's worth $81,000, assuming they could sell the production. And they only pay us $67,000. So what we're showing them is, how do they make more money? How do they make more profit by paying us more? That's the idea behind an economic justification worksheet. They pay us more money and they earn more profit. Now, in order to take on an assignment like this, we have to be level 5 leaders. And Jim Collins, Good to Great, and in subsequent writings, I heard a seminar by him lately, I went in for a refresher. He talks about the importance of using the window and the mirror. So when things go well, we congratulate our team. We look out the window and we say, hey, great job, team. But when things don't go well, if there are setbacks, we look in the mirror and we ask ourselves, what else could I have done? And so you might ask yourself, if you're facing price competition, are you doing an effective economic justification worksheet? Doing an economic justification worksheet, looking in the mirror, is the opposite of learned helplessness. There's nothing I could do. There very often is something we could do. Well, how do you get the information, you might say? Hey, Andy, how do you get the information to do these economic justifications? Well, it goes back to developing a relationship. Sometimes a salesperson will say, hey, I have a great relationship. I go to lunch, I play golf. Okay, but can you get the information to do an economic justification? So the key here is you have to earn the right. Are you earning the right to the information to do the economic justification, which reduces the conflict because it shows why they should do business with us? In order to be motivated to do this, you got to, in my view, got to be on 5 sales quests. You got to care about yourself and quest for yourself, for your company, for the team that depends on us as salespeople to bring in the business. So an interesting one is questing on behalf of the client, because very often the client is resisting us. I'm good, your price is too high. And so we have to be committed to the quest for self-improvement for the client, which means we have to care about the client when they're in the suboptimal position. We have to care about the client. Here's another way to look at it. Your client is about to buy on the basis of price, let's say. They're about to descend into the abyss. They're so near the right decision buying from us. And then a wrong turn, they buy by price. Do you care enough about them to stop them from descending into the abyss? What does that look like? Looks like a ghost town. This is where they go when they make a bad decision. It's a painful, barren place. So we have to care about them. We have to care enough about them to avoid the round trip, because eventually, if they're about to make a bad decision, they're going to have to come back up like this. They're going to have to return to quality, right? And when they get there, which was the right decision in the first place, right? This is where they are. It's a great scene. It's beautiful, like a sunrise or sunset. So did they have to make that painful decision? If we care about the prospect, shouldn't we try to help them avoid it by these methods? We have to overcome self-limiting assumptions. This picture shows Roger Bannister running the first 4-minute mile. Until he did it, it was a self-limiting assumption that nobody could run a 4-minute mile. Well, when we sell, here are 2 self-limiting assumptions that we use. They see what we see, so we don't have to prove. No risk. That's a self-limiting assumption. Like when we spend most of our time selling to existing customers and we go to a new customer, we have to prove our case. And then the other one is it's not worth persisting. It's not worth persisting. So just a quick story on it's not worth persisting. I once had a client. There was a huge opportunity. I had an opportunity, I should say, a prospect. Every week for 75 weeks, I sent a new idea to the owner of the company. Once in a while, he sent back, oh, that's interesting, Andy. But he didn't talk to me for 75 weeks. After 75 weeks of sending a new idea every week, he contacted me. He brought me in. He said, you know, Andy, I didn't read everything you sent me, but I had to assume that, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. And this was an opportunity. This was a client who eventually spent over $250,000 with us for the services we rendered in helping build their sales. So how do you persist? How do you earn the right? What you see on the screen are a set of email rules. This is what you should do when you send emails. Let me give you one of them, which is like my favorite. When you send a string of emails to somebody, sometimes the subject changes, but people don't change the subject line, and it gets really confusing. Anyway, I have a list of, a couple of dozen email rules for you. If you'd like to get a copy of it, send me an email and I'll send it to you. And this is an example of one of the 75. I send ideas out all the time. What are the ideas that you send out? By the way, this is something else you could do as a power of the wisdom in the room. Are you the idea person? Are you earning the right to the idea position? Do you do your research? Are you figuring out the hot button issues of your prospects? Are you sending them freebies like I sent 75 freebies week after week after week? Do you use your testimonials? Have you gotten great testimonials? And the economic justification, which I showed you 2 examples of it a few moments ago. I was once in Hawaii, and I learned from a guide that it has like one of the most diverse topographies in the world. There are like 14 climate zones, and they had 12 or 13. And it got me thinking that a salesperson is diverse like this, including, and these are all qualities of a good salesperson, including, are you being seen as the idea person? Being seen as the idea person is a great way, to melt conflict, because the prospect says to him or herself, wow, Andy's doing all this stuff for me. What's the other guy or gal doing? So conflict leads to 3 major objections. I'm good, your price is too high, and I see you as too risky. Let's take a look at proving our case. Here's a 4-step proving process. We have strong processes. These are quality control processes, which lead to strong statistics, 98% customer satisfaction, which allows us to give a guarantee. If you don't give a guarantee, it could be a promise. And this is validated by strong, powerful customer testimonials. So here's something else to work on as a power of the wisdom in the room idea. So when you don't deal with conflict, these are 3 major objections that come up. Undoubtedly, there are others in your space. Here's another one. Are you talking to the right decision maker? We have what we call the 3 strikes and you're out concept. What that means is if you go to a decision maker and 3 times, a few weeks or a month aside, in between, you make strong presentations and it's going nowhere, maybe we're talking to the wrong person. And maybe you need to go to somebody else in the organization. Very often you need to escalate. So buyers could be pursuing their own self-interest, their convenience, and they may not be aligned with the ownership or the leadership of the organization that's looking down the line. Among other things, an owner can spread risk over many periods, where sometimes a buyer is being evaluated by month or by quarter. So going higher in the food chain is an effective strategy when the foxes are guarding the hen house, which means they're not pursuing the interest of the organization, they're pursuing their own narrow self-interest. So in summary, conflict is inherent in change. We reduce conflict by making the decision obvious, showing there's higher well-being, persisting till the prospect sees this, making sure we're going to the right decision maker, doing our economic justification, and dealing with risk aversion. Well, we all know Rome wasn't built in a day, so we're almost at the end of our presentation. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to get the email rules, send me an email after the presentation. If you have any questions or comments, you could send me an email at andyg@urgencybasedselling.net or go to my website, urgencybasedselling.net. Our next presentation in a month, March 15th at 10:30, is on resolving central paradoxes in selling, especially urgency versus neediness. So just very quickly, the way that works is prospects expect us to act with urgency to respond, but then in the very act of responding, they wonder if we're needy and can they get a fire sale. So that's it for today. It was great to see you folks, and we look forward to seeing you in a month. Bye-bye now.